Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
PD Beats here from Popternative, speaking to Kaileen Chang about I Woke Up a Vampire on Family Channel in Canada, and it's going to be eventually on Netflix as well. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's pretty interesting because I feel like, you work on a show, some kind of part of the world that Canada gets to see it, and then at one point, more people are going to be able to see it. Like, what's that like for you specifically, as it's kind of like slowly getting disseminated to the world?
I'm ecstatic. I'm so excited for so many people to be able to see this. And it's such like a new creative idea that I think a lot of people are going to really like it.
What was the audition process like for this? Did you audition for the role you got? Did you audition for multiple roles? Like, I'm curious about that.
I did audition for the lead role, but when I did audition, she kind of the story and like the character was very different than what we initially went with for the show. So it was very different. And I did a normal audition. I waited like so long and I was like, okay, you can't get everything. And then I get this call from my manager saying, oh, they want you to have a call back. And I was like, oh, that's great. Okay. And then I waited and I never got the call back. And then I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. And then she calls me again. She's like, oh, so the callback was actually you just being on hold. Like they didn't want you to go on Zoom. That's kind of interesting, but that's okay. And so I waited and then I get this, my mom is like, oh, you have to hop on the Zoom call with your manager. I'm like, okay, cool. So I hop and I got on the Zoom call and then Tommy Lynch was on the Zoom telling me I got the role and nobody had told me. So it was very interesting because I had no callbacks and I just had like weeks and weeks of waiting.
I used to love The Secret World of Alex Mack. That was like one of my favorite shows. It's so funny when you see like all these creators that you kind of grew up with and like Tom Lynch, and it's like, oh, like I remember watching a show and he's making more. It's so awesome. I do find it interesting because vampires, like spooky stuff, like that content right now it's always been around, but it's so popular these days, I feel like, whether it's like the books, the TV shows, the movies. So what's that like kind of working in that realm of like the spooky stuff and like the kind of supernatural and like the vampires and the werewolves, all that stuff, knowing that there's like a big appetite for it?
Yeah, I think it's a big shoes to fill because there are so many shows that consist of like vampires, teenage vampires, but I think it's really different. I think it's something I've never seen before. The idea is so creative that even though there are these big shoes to fill, being a teenage vampire and like, a series and all of that, it's still like we're creating something new so that other people can fill these shoes and, kind of grasp like this new idea.
How much, getting back to the audition a little bit too, like how much do you know about the characters like when you audition for it? Because I feel like it depends, right? Like sometimes you're given a lot of information and then sometimes you're not given much. Like, do you know enough about the characters going into the audition?
When I first read the audition, I only ever was allowed to audition for Carmi, which is my character. I had no idea. It had a very brief thing, like rundown of the show. And like, I had no idea who the other characters were, who they were going to be. I never had a chemistry read. I never had any clue. So when I first got the script for our first table read, I was reading it and I was like, what the heck? Who are these like characters? And I had to piece it together. And I remember being specifically the collector. I had no idea what that was about. And I was so confused, but it was fine because eventually I understood.
Without giving kind of big spoilers, what can you tell us specifically about the show? And why do you think, in your opinion, from someone working on it that's really has seen it firsthand, right? Because you're filming everything. Like, why do you think people should check out this show on Family Channel now in Canada and eventually on Netflix? What tell us about it specifically?
I think that the show is Definitely, I love to say that it's something I've never seen before because I've truly watched every single show for kids and I've like literally never seen this before. And I think that it's so great to have a show that covers, very serious topics that kids do go through, especially teenage girls.
Mhm.
And then it also has this fun side of where it's like supernatural and like it just keeps you engaged. And I think that viewers watching should really look forward to having a lot of thrill and to being very excited for every next episode because it all just comes together and it's really fun, like mystery to like solve.
It's interesting too because I feel like the way you were kind of describing it, there's like a genre bending component of it, right? Like there's so many kind of genres. Like it's like it's you said kind of like it's got some dark components of it. Maybe it's got a bit of humor. Like, do you notice that when you're reading the scripts? Like there's a lot of kind of elements in this show as well.
Yeah, I think that the show in general has so many different parts and like genres to it that it kind of just becomes its own. And it's like, every episode is different because one scene can be like very like serious and it's very, you know, like heartwarming. And then you can completely go to a next scene where it's like you're laughing and you can't stop laughing. And then there's something else where it's like, oh my God, like what's going to happen next? I'm so excited. And so, especially reading the scripts, I never like to read ahead because I definitely love to have the suspense for myself. And it was very interesting seeing the story develop and as the episodes went on to see it just like grow into something that I was just so excited to work on.
Is there any kind of fun onset or offset kind of stories you could share? I feel like there's so many kind of like I feel like there's so much you can kind of say. Like, is there any cool moments that kind of happened filming this that remain kind of special that you could share specifically on top of your head?
Yeah, I mean, filming with a bunch of kids is definitely a crazy experience, especially for the adults on set, because for a bunch of teenagers, and it's hard to take stuff seriously. But we definitely kept it very professional, and we had our fair share of offset and onset, like silly goofing around. But I want to say like every single moment has to be something that I will remember. Like I
Mhm.
can name every single thing that happened on screen, off screen, like all the time. It's just was like the experience was so surreal and the
Mhm.
people there just made it feel like such like a family. And so like everything we did is just so memorable.
Is it starting to kind of sink in that like the United States are going to be able to see it on Netflix? Like, it's pretty crazy to think about, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of nervous, but I'm really excited because then a lot of my family can see it now.
Mhm.
And I think it's like good that it's reaching a bigger audience so that a lot of more kids can see it.
Absolutely. Now, we'll and when it comes out on Netflix, we'll all get notified and people will be able to check it out in the US. But now they can actually watch I Woke Up a Vampire on Family Channel in Canada. Thank you so much for your time. It was so great chatting with you.
Thank you.
Very quickly, could you plug away your Instagram account so people can keep up to date with everything?
Yeah, my Instagram is just Kaileen Chang. So
Awesome. So I could check that out. Awesome. Well, this has been Pop Turnitive, youtube.com/PopTurn for previous episodes. Until next time, this is Kaileen Chang, who you can catch in I Woke Up a Vampire on Family Channel, and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.